Hello and welcome. You're listening to Clarity with Priya, where calm meets clarity. If you're here, I would like to start by saying this. You don't need another framework. You definitely don't need to work harder, and you don't need to be more motivated. What most of us need as leaders, founders, customer facing professionals is clarity. Clarity in how we think, clarity in how we lead, clarity of how we show up when things are not the way they are supposed to be, uncertain, messy, or uncomfortable. This podcast is not about quick wins. It's not productivity hacks or performative leadership either. It's about how to slow down just enough to see clearly and then move forward with intention. Let me tell you why this podcast needed to exist. Over the last 15 years of working as customer success, customer support, and leadership roles across B2B SaaS companies, I noticed something interesting. Most failures don't happen because people lack effort or intelligence or experience. They happen because of unclear thinking, unclear expectations with the customers, unclear alignment between the teams, the founders, the leaders, and the people doing the work, unclear ownership within teams. And on a personal level, unclear boundaries, unclear self trust, unclear definitions of success that no longer fit who we are. We keep trying to solve clarity problems with more motion, more meetings, more dashboards, more calls, more noise. But clarity doesn't come from volume, it comes from intentional stillness. That's what this space is for. Let's talk honestly about what happens when clarity is missing. In customer success, it looks like escalations that felt sudden but weren't. Customers saying we are unhappy without knowing why. Renewals turning into negotiations instead of confirmations. Teams feeling busy but ineffective. For founders, it shows up as believing my way is the only way, confusing conviction with rigidity, repeating same strategies year on year and wondering why growth plateaus. And personally, it looks like burnout that don't go away with rest. A sense that you're doing everything right but still feel misaligned. That quiet voice asking, is this still who I want to be? Clarity is not a nice to have. It's the difference between reacting and leading. This one is for leaders. Experience becomes a liability if it turns into hardened certainty. What worked 5 years ago? What worked in your previous company? What worked when your team was smaller? That context no longer exists. Yet, many leaders operate from the expired clarity. They don't question their assumptions. They don't revisit definitions of success. They don't create space for new signals. And slowly, they stop growing, not because they are incapable, but because they have stopped listening. Clarity requires openness, and openness requires humility. Let's redefine clarity. Clarity is not having all the answers, being certain all the times, controlling the outcomes. Clarity is knowing what matters now, being honest about trade offs, creating alignment before action, choosing direction over speed. Clarity doesn't remove complexity, it gives you something to hold on to inside the complexity. Every episode in this series sits at the intersection of three layers: internal clarity, how you think, how you regulate, how you make decisions under pressure; relational clarity, how you communicate, how you build trust among teams, customers, and peers; how you set boundaries; operational clarity, how goals are defined, how success is measured, and how outcomes are communicated. When any of this is missing, friction shows up elsewhere. This podcast will explore clarity across customer success, leadership, change, boundaries, purpose, resilience, trust, growth, not as theory, but as lived practice. There is a quiet shift happening in leadership. The loudest voice in the room is no longer the most effective. The busiest leader is no longer the most valuable. The leaders who scale teams, outcomes, and trust are the ones who pause before reacting, ask better questions, create psychological safety, make decisions from clarity, not fear. Calm is not softness, calm is control. And clarity is what creates that calm. In these episodes, we talk about how misaligned expectations break customer journeys, why saying no builds more trust than overcommitting, how to lead through change without losing yourself, the difference between achievement and alignment, why resilience is elasticity, not endurance. Each episode is short by design, 2 to 4 minutes. Because clarity doesn't need long explanations, it requires precise articulation. This bigger launch episode exists so you know what you're stepping into. Before we end, I leave you with this thought. Growth doesn't stall because we lack effort. It stalls because we keep repeating the patterns that once worked but no longer serve us. Clarity begins when you're willing to ask what needs to change now. If this series resonates with you, if you're building, leading, navigating transition, then stay with me. And if there is one area of your work or life that feels stuck or noisy, that's where clarity is waiting. You have been listening to Clarity with Priya, where calm meets clarity. I will see you in the next episode.